Okay, well, another heartfelt welcome to everyone that is joining us today. This is the second installment for our book art series, and I have the pleasure to welcome and introduce Sarah Matthews. So I'm going to read a little bit about the bio. Hopefully everyone can hear me and see me okay. But if you weren't aware, Sarah Matthews is a MA Art and the book graduate from the Corcoran College of Arts and Design at George Washington University in Washington, D.C. Mrs. Matthews also received an MBA with a marketing concentration in 2005 and a BS in sociology in 2000 from Bowie State University in Bowie, Maryland. And Mrs. Matthews' work has been exhibited in the US and is a part of the permanent collections of the Yale Beneke Rare Book and Manuscript Library, George Washington University's Gelman Library, University of Puget Sound, and Stanford University, among many more. In fact, I looked it up, and at least according to your CV, you are part of 26 special collections. So congrats on that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And Ms. Matthews is currently the Alma Thomas Fellow at the Studio Gallery in Washington, D.C., and currently teaches bookbinding and printmaking. I also wanted to give a little shout out. You've exhibited your work both nationally and internationally at an impressive number of institutions. And I mentioned this before we brought everyone on, but I've really enjoyed looking at your website to see what you've been working on, the scope of your work, and I'm really looking forward to your talk today.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you moderating.
No problem. And let's give Sarah a warm welcome, and then I'm going to be quiet and I'll just kind of sit and enjoy. Okay, so claps and snaps, and I'll let you take it over.
All right, I'm gonna share my screen. Hopefully this will work. There we go. And, okay. So today we're going to talk about my most recent artist book called Homage to NMAAHC. It's the National Museum of African American History and Culture. And I just wanted to talk about like what my process was, you know, where I started with the idea and where I ended up. So first I wanted to talk about this quote that my aunt gave me a few years back that I wanted to share with all of you. An idea can turn to dust or magic depending on the talent that rubs against it. William Birnbach. And my aunt always said that it's important to take your ideas to the next level and don't give up on them. So that's why I'm sharing that with you. So where this starts is before I became an artist full-time, I was an HR manager at Best Buy. And we would create experiences for our employees. And we would take them to museums and we would have teachbacks from what we learned from the museum to help better serve not only the customers, but to better serve the employees that are working in the building. So fast forward after I've gotten my degree at the Corcoran and I'm starting to work at the Heidelberg Offset Center as an associate, I brought up this idea of doing some experiences with our art students and how we can utilize those experiences to create artwork. So in this instance, we scheduled a visit to the National Museum of African American History and Culture in honor of Black History Month. And it was February 1st, 2020. And we traveled via the metro. We met at a central location, and then we took the metro to the museum and had a great time. And then what we wanted to do afterwards, based off the experience, was to create an artist book. So there's about 5 of us that joined, and then folks were going to go on their own. If you can do so, please mute you. That would be awesome. So anyway, the goal was for everyone who joined, or if they went on their own, to create an artist book that encapsulates their experience with the museum. So this is the National Museum of African American History and Culture, and it's really magnificent the way that it was created. Even from the street, even if you drive by it, I think it's just so beautiful and ornate, and really, I'm gonna say this as a joke, but it really was like watching the movie Never Ending Story, when you hear like the ivory, they call it the ivory tower. And this is how it felt to me when I walked up, like that sound of magnificent, seeing that museum, and I'm just wanted to know what was happening on the inside. And when you walk in, there's so many different vignettes and so many different areas within the museum that really shines a light on the Black culture, where we started from in slavery and where we are today. And it's a lot of imagery and things to inspire you. It's 4 floors of just amazing information and artwork and history that is just, I mean, I've been there 5 times and I still haven't seen everything. Every time I pop in, I just recently went there like 3 weeks ago just to get re-enamored with it. And there's still more things to see and to grasp from anyone if you want to take a look. Here's one quote that I really love. Artists are the gatekeepers of truth. We are civilization's radical voice. And then James Brown, I am Black and I'm proud. And to see it in this type of large type was really inspiring to me, even though I've heard the song, I've heard him sing it, but to see it like this, really, inspired me. And then making a way out of no way, and how we can take nothing and make it into something. And then as I was leaving the museum, because this particular visit was my 3rd time attending, going into the museum, and I just felt like there's so many things that I need to do as a person of color, as a Black woman. There are things that I need to be doing to help further all the things that my ancestors have done, all the things that they have set forth, all the fights that they went through, all the things that they, marched for. Like, I had a sense of ownership of what I needed to do as a person. And then we visited the cafe, which is on the bottom level of the museum. And I don't know what it was, but the ceiling, like, really, I don't know, just the way that it looked, the shadows, the lighting, the different panels, I couldn't stop looking at it. So I took some photos of that. And then when I got home, I took some of the photos that I took while I was at the museum, and I put them together in Photoshop and made a collage overlapping the different things, and just kind of seeing what I could do with the images that I took at the museum. And then my intent from doing this was to create a screen so I could screen print yellow paper from French paper and make a flag book. That was my original goal from this experiment here. And then, if you remember at the beginning of this presentation, we went to the museum February 1st, 2020. So COVID hit. So everything was at a standstill. There were no places to go print anything. Everything was at a halt. In fact, I remember trying to order art supplies and there was a shortage of inks and paper and all that stuff. And so I really resorted to utilizing all the things that I had at home, but I just didn't feel like I had the right stuff to make this book that I had thought about after leaving the museum. So I kind of just shelved it. And then I was invited by Amanda D'Amico and Lori Spencer for the Von Hess visiting artists in the Borowsky Center during the spring 2022 semester. Visiting artists come to explore the wonderfulness of the offset medium. And I pulled this from the website, and it says the center facilitates image making as a synthesis of handiwork, photography, and digital imagery. All imaginable combinations of traditional and electronic prepress are the subjects of experimentation. Selected artists work with a master printer in the center to create an original print or an artist book. These artists are recommended from a broad array of disciplines, including the fine arts, photography, illustration, and graphic design. And the average residency is anywhere between 3 and 5 days. So I came to the Borowsky Center, hopefully I'm saying that right, and I met with Amanda D'Amico and Lori, and they showed me their presses, and this is the Heidelberg offset press that we worked on. And I just thought, I don't know, it's the biggest press that I ever had an opportunity to work on. I usually, with letterpress, is the biggest one I've ever used was a Vandercook. So being able to utilize this was really like amazing to me. And I just enjoyed seeing the whole process of utilizing this press. And I also put some information from the website. So this is a Heidelberg coarse offset press. It can accommodate a variety of papers ranging from 7 inches by 10 inches to 20 inches by 28. It was manufactured in 1988 and can accommodate both positive and negative lithoplates, freeing artists to create images in a variety of ways. And they use superior brand Pantone inks to custom mix an array of colors, as well as metallics, fluorescence, and varnish. So the first thing that we ended up doing, because Amanda reached out to me to bring some of my already carved stamps, and she mentioned that she would have her students carve their own blocks. So I'll show you that. And then we printed our blocks with black ink onto a piece of paper, and then was put into acetate. And then we moved to the plate maker and burned the image onto the plates. All like amazing. I was just like in awe of seeing this whole process. So this is what the plate looks like after it's been washed in the bath. And then ran through the press. This is when the color is added. And then this is when it was finally printed. So what we ended up with was a whole collection or a set or an edition of one-page books. And as you can see, there's like so much richness with the colors and the layers. from the top to the bottom. We did like a rainbow roll all the way across and selected, I don't remember, 10 to 12 colors and the Pantone swatches and put together this book. So when I got home, I still didn't really think about that previous work that I was working on after we visited the museum. But I went through all my blocks and found the carving of the National Museum of African American History and Culture that I carved a year before. This is a reenactment because I cannot find that block. I don't know what I did with it, but I recarved it this morning, and just so you can see, a little bit of the process. So because of what I learned at the Borowsky Center, I took the previous block, I printed with black ink on white paper. Then I scanned it in to with my Epson printer into Photoshop, and then I duplicated it to create this background. So I knew this will be like the first um, film that I was going to use to create the plate, to create a print. So that was the first one. And then because the theme of the previous artist book was the I Have a Dream speech, I pulled this one because this part of the actual speech, because I have 4 children, 4 daughters. So this part really resonated with me and I wanted it to be in the book. So I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation. I can't see it because, there we go. Live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. So I wanted that to be a part of the book. And then I pulled some other blocks that I have done before that I've already scanned and then put them together as a design for more plates to be created. So I ended up showing up to Philadelphia with 5 different films to make plates. And this is what they look like. Along with that screen printed, the image that I used that was supposed to be screen printed, I ended up turning it into film as well. And here's what the plate looks like after it's been washed in the bath. And then let's look at the prints. And then this is me, because I am a hands-on learner. I convinced Amanda to let me take off the plate. And then also because you can do custom inks, I learned how to use the fan deck for the Pantone, and then each color has their own formula. So I learned how to mix my own ink by using the weight. So that was really fun to learn. And then this is the press. And then this is what it turned out. And then I came back for the book to be put together, and I had it's so amazing to have the students assist me in creating these books. I don't know if I would have had the time or patience to do it myself. So I'm truly grateful that they helped in this project. It made it go very smoothly. And I don't know, I just love seeing how everything put together, the flags. And then this is them all done. And this is when I had the opportunity to come and sign all the books. We ended up with 138 copies. And so it was really fun to go through and number everything and get it all ready to take home. So here is, I'm going to try and move this. You know, there's a spot where the folks' faces are. Like, I can't, I'm gonna have to stop sharing, I guess, so I can move it to see. I think we're good. Homage to NMAAHC is a flag book designed by Sarah Matthews and printed by Amanda D'Amico and Erica Honson on the Heidelberg Offset Printer in the Borowsky Center for the publication at the University of Arts in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on a chilly weekend in March 2020. This was the Colophon that went into the book. And now I'm going to show you what it looks like. Let's do it. Wow. All right, so this is the cover. Both the back and front are identical, and on the back cover it unfolds, and which includes the colophon. This is the spine. I wanted to utilize the image of the museum so it'd be visible. With flag books, I feel like they're sculptural, so you can view them from any angle, and I really wanted that to be prominent in the book. And by putting it on the spine, I achieved that. And if you can tell, behind the motif of the museum is the ceiling. So that was printed first, and then the museum. And then this is an overhead view of the flags. And I wanted them to be extra long, and I love how when flag books are displayed, you can see the shadows, and even depending on how like breezy the place is, the flags kind of move side to side, and so I wanted them to be as long as possible. This is the view from the back. An up-close view of the inside of the book. And you can see the spine is double-sided. And I don't know if you can see in this photo, but there are some of the imagery of the folks from the images that I put together in the collage. You can see them, like where it says but, you can see their faces showing through. what questions do you have for me?
Well, I know one question that came up in the chat is that, is this book still available? And I'm inquiring for myself as well.
Yes, they're like, again, there's 138 copies, and I believe one was sold, so we still have 137.
Well, how would one go about purchasing a copy?
I haven't set that up yet, but I'll just be on the lookout on my Instagram or on my website when that happens, but I haven't got to that point yet.
No
I'm just
worries.
happy that they're done. I think Carrie has a question.
Hey, Sarah. I do have a question. So I'm curious because I remember back in the day when you first learned the flag book structure, it just really connected with you, really clicked. And you just went off in so many different directions, kind of like taking it to another level, changing things up than just a basic flag book. Why do you feel like you connect so well to this structure? And how does it lend well to your voice and what you're trying to say?
I think when you introduced it to us in class, I really liked putting together the flag book, and then I went and researched who created them, which was Haiti Kyle. And then I watched every video that I could find. I think it's like 3 available. And I
I was
remember
gonna
this
say there's not many. Yeah.
there's not that many. I even like ordered all the books that she had made, that because this is before the current one that she made, and tried to find every flag book that she had ever made, even the one that she made with it has
the mica
the
sheets.
mica one.
Yeah.
Yeah, the mica sheets one.
I
I was
love,
just like,
yeah.
and then the way that the light shines on it, and then you see the shadows. And I feel like the reason why it resonates with me, I could put all that I want, all the colors that I want in the flag book, and then still cast a shadow. Or even another artist that I just made recently, I strung lights through it. It's a flag book. I strung lights through it because I wanted to see where the light would cast and where the shadows would be. And I feel like with a flag book, it's not only a sculpture, but it's still a book, and it does multiple things. I think because I love layers, I guess it's just
That
an
makes sense.
example of what layers is.
Yep.
And it's in a flag book. Yeah.
And
Pam has a question.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
I was curious, were just speaking about layers, and it's one of the things that I noticed and have been so enamored with in your work. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you visualize that? I know that the printmaking aspect really lends to all of this, one on top of the other, but I'm curious, how do you go about that? Is with color and image and word? Walk us through a little bit of that. I'm just kind of curious.
Okay, so if I go back in time, I remember the first time I experimented with layers. It was like that year that I was taking intro to bookbinding and advanced printmaking, and Georgia Deal introduced this thing called Centra. So one day on my experimentation day, because I wasn't really printing anything for class, I was just running through the press. I started with yellow, and then I did blue, and then I did red. And because each time, not only I was wetting the paper and running it through the press, there are other colors that were showing up, like purples and greens. And I'm like, this is so cool. Like, how can I keep doing this? And so as time progressed, I kind of forgot that I loved layers. Even though I did it in my thesis, when I made that game plus or minus. But again, after I graduated, I had a daughter, and then I made nothing for an entire year. So I kind of forgot like who I was as an artist. In fact, like every day I would wake up thinking wake up or go to sleep thinking I was a failure because I hadn't made anything. But I made a child and I was taking care of her and I was giving her everything I had, but I didn't feel good about myself to make anything. So it wasn't until I know it's a long story, but this is the story. I got a call for entry from Big Ink Prints. Don't know how I got it, but it was like, hey, you want to make this big block of wood? We bring our press and we'll run it through. And I was just like, I haven't carved anything in a year. And the biggest thing I've carved was Centra. So I don't know, I don't know if I can do this, but I've got to do something. So I entered into this call for entry and they said yes. So I waited until like the night before to start carving my block. I do not recommend this. But I did. And I was carving up until Lael said, Sarah, it's your turn. So I did my little nick and I came over and they ran it through the press. And then, because it's so large, the paper is up in the air and they were draping it and hanging it up on the ceiling. And that's when I said to myself, I'm an artist. I don't know why. But that's when I said I was an artist. And from then on, I did every challenge, every Inktober, every Carve December. And the second year of Carve December, I was playing around and I overlapped 2 blocks. And I remembered that I loved layering. And I've been doing it ever since. I didn't think I was gonna cry.
Oh, you're right. Has been here. I just wanted to pipe in. I absolutely love your passion and that you have found this because your sophisticated way of layering and bringing in complex ideas and everything just manifests in such a beautiful way. And I did have a question that I had looked at your website and I was kind of curious about, like, I know that the flag book is of keen interest to you, but does the structure ever, outside of that one in particular, does it dictate, like, how does that work? Do you think about the structure first, or do you think about the ideas and how those would coalesce? Does that make sense?
I think it depends. Like, there are some that I have taken, like existing prints, like the first flag book I made after school, I made from my MLK prints that I made my first class at the Corcoran. It was a letterpress class. And I couldn't sell them things. I tried, one bought any. But then I took those extra prints and then made a flag book out of it. And the thing is large because it was 11 by 17 print. So once you lay it out, it opens up rather largely. And so I was like, oh, I can do that with photos. And so then I researched, Karen Hamner has this tutorial. It's on a newsletter called Bone Folder. And so she walks through how you can take a photo and manipulate it so it looks a different way on a flag book. And so I played around with it with some of my misprints. And as you can see, when you log into my website, where it says I am a book artist, the first one is the Stacy one. And so, yeah, that's the same concept that she did, because you see how it trails off and looks right at Stacy's face. And that was because of that tutorial that she created. So yeah, I was just like a fanatic about flag books. So I was just learning different ways on how to execute it. And sometimes I utilize just scraps that are totally different. They don't even look together. And I just put them in a flag book just to see how they look. And like I said before, I've strung lights through them just to add some interest and and flare. And there was one, if you could see on my website, that I did that's just white. It's white with holes in it. And it's called Illuminated Bullets, because I actually put, when I had it displayed at the Amory Sculpture Garden, I put lights behind it so you could see the light coming through. And the reason why I made that book is because I was watching this documentary from Washington Post on YouTube about the murder of Breonna Taylor, and how the police were shooting from the outside of the apartment into the side of the apartment, and then from the front door in. And there were bullet holes through the refrigerator and the cabinets, and it went through to other people's houses. And so I started thinking about those holes, right? Because that was reason why someone was actually arrested, was because they endangered someone else's life, but not really the death of Breonna, right? And so I made that book to talk about that, but as a total departure from what I do, which is color, color, color. But when I saw that, I had to say something with just holes, not with like words or ink or anything. It's just paper on an accordion with holes.
Great, thank you. And there was a question that came up in the chat is similar to what we were discussing, but this comes from Emily. Do you plan out your layers in advance, or do you see what happens and adjust as you go along at the press?
I do not plan. I think that comes from playing. Doing those, the Inktober and the Carve Decembers, like that was my opportunity to play. And and this is why I tell my students, like, you got to do your work first in play mode, like the way a child does. One time I was a substitute teacher for my daughter's nursery school. And because they knew I was an artist, they had me go, like, you take care of the kids in the art space. Great. So I'm sitting there watching a little girl paint a picture, and she took her brush, dipped it in the ink, and then just did one swatch. And she says, I'm done. Put my name on it. Right? And so that experience to me was like, wow, what do I do when I'm making stuff? Is it done? Is it right? Is anybody going to like it? Oh my gosh, is it the right color? Did I use the right stuff? Right? No, she was like, I'm done. And she was in that state of play. And I feel like now that we are adults, have to remember how to play. And because I play, usually like my first, where I start with it, playing and having fun, I remember better than if I'm stressed. Because everybody knows this. When you're stressed, things are happening. You don't know what happened. You don't remember what happened. But when you're in a state of play, it's easier to remember what happened. So because I did it in the play mode, I can recall when I'm doing it in real life for a serious project. I don't plan. I don't have time for that.
Do we have any other questions? You can either unmute yourself or ask that in the chat. I will go ahead and read it. Amelia is asking, if you could describe your body of work in one word or phrase, what would it be?
That's funny. My husband gave me, I guess, describe what my work is. And it's Afro chaotic cool, is what he said. So I'm using it.
That's a good tagline. I like that. And I have another question. Because I was looking through your website and stuff, and I came across the book Pain, and I think there's some overarching ideas get utilized, but that one is visually so very different, because yes, it's apparent you love layering. There's a lot of history and sophistication with color, but that one, is devoid of so much color, and perhaps it has to do with the subject matter, but I just wanted to see if you had any comments about that.
Okay, so it's actually poem, P-O-I-M.
My
It
bad. My
it's a
apologies.
no, don't. I'll tell you. Don't worry. Don't apologize because I'm gonna explain. I'm gonna explain. So it's actually that's my first artist book that I ever made. I made it in Ancha Karachi's class in the Corcoran College of Art and Design, and it was the layout book design. I think that's what it's called. And I started making it because my grandmother, when I was in my 20s, used to send me her poetry because she was intent of in creating her own poetry book. So she would send me her poetry handwritten, and then I would transcribe it and send it to the copyright office so she could have, you know, copyrighted material to use for her poem book. And when she would send it to me, I thought it really was saying pain. I was like, Grandma, are you in pain? I don't understand why it says this, but I didn't realize until I made this book that it's POIM. My grandmother had an 8th grade education because she had to work, do it in the cotton fields and tobacco fields to help support her family. So that's how she spelled poem. So I took the pages and put them in Photoshop and separated the words from the paper because some of the stuff she wrote on yellow paper. So I had to separate it. And then I started, adding, depending on the cover is layers, but on the inside, not so much. But I, took her handwriting and started making patterns with it. As you see towards the end of the book. And the photography are from photos my parents and my aunts and uncles collected. And then the two, like the one where she's to the side, I actually took with a black and white camera when I went to Anne Arundel Community College taking photography. So I actually opened up the film and developed it myself and put it in the bath. I did all that thing to get that photo. And so I'm very pleased with that book. In fact, I worked really hard on it and I've given it to gifts to aunts and uncles, my parents. So they have that memory of her. But I accomplished the very thing that she set out to in making her poetry book.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Do you have any other questions?
You want to move on to the next thing?
Sure.
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna move some things real quick so people can, and then we're gonna do a little demo.
And while she's doing that, I did fail to mention during my intro that Sarah Matthews is the current president of College Book Art Association. And so, yay, claps and snaps for you. But that is an important thing, and I think it's awesome. It's neat to see your passion and excitement for book arts and how you share it with others, not only through your work, but also through your teaching.
I just wanted to say that Sarah is the master of doing demos online. During the pandemic, I was actually reaching out to Sarah to get advice as to how to set this stuff up in my home studio to be able to teach my own classes. So just wanted to give Sarah a shout out because she's got it all worked out. And I truly thank you for the advice because I was struggling.
It's not easy.
No, it's not. Especially if you're very low tech.
Angie would like a demo on that. So
Sure. Well, I can do that. Maybe that'll be like a teach out. Because this is my makeshift one at my house, because the one at Pyramid is better than this setup, but at least it's still at least it still works. All right. So I'm gonna start with how I do my layers. So I always start with the lightest color first. So I'm using this Moon Glow extra bright dye ink. It's by arthomies.com. I started using stamping ink at home because at the time of the pandemic, my daughter was 4, my youngest daughter was 4. And she would I would roll out, the ink on the brayer and everything on the plexi, and she would put her hand in it. And I've got to find something, because my whole house is going to have handprints. It's not going to work. So I was watching, I don't know, some YouTube channel, and somebody was doing with stamping ink. I'm like, I'm going to get that. So there you go. So now that I went up, now I'm going to go down. And if I had like a stamp that was square, I usually mark at the top, where's the top, so I can make a pattern going different directions. And carving blocks like this, I did not do prior to the pandemic. I would normally use, again, Centra or wood. And I moved to using the speedy cut or the soft cut because that was available and easy to print from home. So, and now it's really a part of how I print today. But I'm gonna get back doing the other thing too. So one day. And I usually use this side of my hand to press down, because I usually can't find the Baron, so I just use my hands. I think that's really what it was during the pandemic. It was about using whatever I had, because I was in the mode of, I'm going to make stuff or else, because I needed it to live. It was like breathing. I needed it to be a part of my life. Amanda, are you still here? Do you have anything you want to say?
I'm still here. Do I have anything I want to say? I think I was lucky. I don't always get to pick who I work with, but it was Sarah's layering and these similar videos on Instagram that really grabbed my attention. And there's not a lot of offset presses out there that book artists can still use, but one of the maybe kinds of traditions that we have throughout this time at UArts is really this idea of using a press as the art making tool. So I had the feeling that Sarah would be really good at kind of seeing the layers and leaning into the transparency of inks, and we were all right, and it was really, really fun.
I had so much fun. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
For inviting me.
And the students all really got to see, I think, we have graduate students, and I'm sure you all know how small their world can get and how intense things can get. So to have someone come in and remind everyone that making art is fun, I think was also really beneficial for all of the students.
Mhm. Oh yeah, and the fact that I said it's a variable addition.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Good times. But it made it fun. I loved seeing the different, because every book is different. I like that.
Sarah, I know you told me before, but can you repeat again what this ink is?
Okay, this is the Versify and Clear pigment ink. They come in every single color.
Are those permanent inks?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, they are. So when I'm printing and I go off like this, then I start on the full on this side and go this way.
And Sarah, they're water-based, correct?
Yes.
And how long do they take to
They're
dry?
not alcohol. No
Just
alcohol.
out of curiosity. How long do they take to dry?
Probably like an hour.
Oh, wow. Okay, quick.
Yeah.
Do they like if you were to, let's say, dunk this in water after it's been dried, would it dislodge at all, or would the color seep out?
Yeah, but it will. I would probably like add a fixative if you want to do that.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna start over on this side. So when I'm at this stage, I'm like, oh, this is looking pretty good. I'm just looking forward to the third layer. That's where my mind is like, what is that gonna look like? What is that gonna look like? It's like the anticipation. Okay. So because I still have a little bit of this blue on there, I'm gonna take another sheet of paper and burnish it a little bit to get some of, because you're not gonna get all of it, but some of that extra ink off. All right. Now I'm gonna do Glamorous and Red. I'm gonna turn it upside down. Oops. It's got more of it. The purples are showing up there. Does anybody else have any more questions while I'm laying on this last layer? While you have me. Don't be shy.
Sarah, I know you do a lot of stuff on Instagram. Can you talk a little bit more about like, how you use social media and like what groups you're connected with and, how you kind of get your word out through that?
I have a love-hate relationship with with social media. I do the stuff, but I don't necessarily like what happens after you put the stuff out there in the atmosphere. But
What do you mean by that? I'm kind of curious.
well, I feel like when you when you put it out there and then you kind of watch to see how many people like it, I think that's kind of toxic. I mean, at least
Yep,
for me,
yep.
right?
Yep, exactly.
So then like, okay, how do I navigate through like letting go and just being me, regardless of how many likes I get? That's where I am. Still in a state of struggle. However, I try to post stuff that I would like to see, right? I feel like sometimes when I'm on YouTube or Instagram, I'm just looking for somebody else who does what I do, and I just consume everything that they do, and enjoy it, right? And so I'm to the point now where like I'm gonna have fun with it. Like I'm saying, even with my art, like I'm gonna have fun with it. I'm gonna make jokes. I'm gonna be myself. And if nobody likes it, at least my sister does. Right? At least my mom likes it, and that's the audience that I
Yeah, that's such a
focus on.
much healthier, reason to put things out there. But I do think it's very inspirational to see like how much you do. And like I know during the pandemic you were doing like a print a day or something like that. And I was like,
Yeah.
I love that because I think it was so easy during the pandemic to get complacent. So I thought it was great that you kind of pushed yourself out of that funk feeling we all had.
Yeah, because
I found it inspirational.
I think the reason why I did it was because I knew I had to do something every day. And if I filmed it every day, then it would push me to do it. Like because people were
Gotcha.
waiting. Because that year I posted every day.
I know. I was like, I don't know how she does this because I would never make that commitment.
But I would wake up at the crack of dawn before my kids got up and made something. And you know why? Okay, so the very last thing that I did before the pandemic hit, besides the visiting the museum, is Amos Paul Kennedy Jr. came to Pyramid and did a workshop on letterpress printing, of course, letterpress printing. But he said, do something every day. He said, even when you took a brush and just did a stroke across the page, that's something. Put ink on paper every day. And so that's what I remembered. And that's what I continue to do after the pandemic started. You know what I mean? And then I feel like doing the videos like made me hold myself accountable in doing it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
A question about process did come up. I know you mentioned that you typically work light to dark, but have you ever approached it from the opposite of going from dark to light? Is that a consideration?
Yes, but I feel like it would still look similar if I did it the other way, because I've done that. I've done the other way, but I feel like I can see it better when I start from light to go to dark if I'm printing on lighter paper. But if I'm printing on like black paper or darker colors, I start with the dark color first and then go light, because you can see it better. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, definitely. Any other questions from our group? right. Well, I would like to thank you all for joining us today. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. It was great getting to know more about you as the artist and how you go about creating your work, and of course, the lovely work itself.